All right, hi everyone, and welcome to this week's product training with Blue Triangle. Today we're going to talk about the service profiles and tag governance and why it is that you need them. One of the biggest challenges with tag governance is how to manage all of your third-party tags from the perspective of who owns each tag, what kind of information do they collect, and so on. The service profiles are designed to solve this problem, and in this session we're going to dive into the service profiles in Blue Triangle and walk through how they work and how to use them. Alright, so my name is Mark and I'm the support manager here at Blue Triangle, and I do these training sessions each week about various topics related to web performance, analytics, and ultimately how to solve problems using Blue Triangle. So let's go ahead and get started. As far as the agenda today, we're going to start off and talk about just at a high level, what are the service profiles? There's really a lot that they can do, but the key purpose of the service profiles is to help you manage the details for each tag or service on your website, and we'll walk through what that looks like live right after we touch on those service profiles at a high level, and finally we'll do a bit of Q&A. So the service profiles, if we were to define what they really are, it's an organizational system for content ownership that allows management and monitoring. So what we're looking at here in this screenshot is the service profiles page in Blue Triangle, and what it is a table of all of the services on your website. Blue Triangle, from the data collection from both RUM, your real user, our JavaScript tag, and synthetic monitors. Blue Triangle, from our service library, we're able to automatically detect what services, vendors, and services are on your website, and we're going to list them here in this table. We're going to automatically create these service profiles for you as we collect data. If we pop open one of these, here we have Ad Roll. At the top of the profile, what we see is ownership information. So who is the business owner? Who is the technical contact? What department of our organization is this service associated with, or even a sub-department? What is the overall risk assessment score? This may or may not be applicable, but it's a text field there for you if you'd like to use it. The other thing is you can upload attachments. That would be, for example, where you could put the results of a security scan or other information. Now, one of the really cool things you can do with these service profiles is send a service security application. A quick description of that is it's basically a form that you can send the link to your contact at the service, for example, Ad Roll, and you can say, hey, please fill this out so we can get the information about your service or tag on our site. And when they do that, that'll fill into the profile here. For example, it'll show technical details like the data collection, HTTP method, whether it's a GET or a POST. What's the average number of network requests? There's more code level questions about this. Are there any other services that piggyback onto this service? For example, I know that there are some ad services that load other services. And another important piece of this is what kind of information does this service collect? Particularly PII information. It's very important to understand which services are collecting PII information about your customers. Now, the other side of this is if you're interested in implementing a content security policy, another thing Blue Triangle is automatically doing is detecting which domains are associated with each of these services. And when you open up the profile, you're able to see those domains and you're able to run through and approve or reject them. Now, this isn't only just for content security policies. You can also use this for a domain whitelist. So this is essentially, it's an implementation inside of Blue Triangle that's going to just notify you when there's domains showing up in your site that shouldn't be there. And I'll get into this as we run through this live. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into Blue Triangle Live and walk through some of these things. So to get to the service profiles, we're going to go down to Tag and Content Governance here in the left menu. And under Tag and Content Governance, we're going to go to the service profiles, otherwise known as the vendor service profiles. All right, so as you saw on the screenshot in the slide, what we're looking at here is all of the services that are on your website. This example here is using our bluetriangle.com marketing website. And so as you can see, we have 108 different services on here. Now, just to be clear, the difference between a vendor and a vendor service is really that some vendors, not all of course, but some vendors do have multiple services, and it's important to distinguish between the two. So at a high level here, we're looking at the Account Profiles tab. Basically, this operates on a system of inheritance. For example, if you have multiple sites in your organization, if there's anything site specific as it relates to these services, you're able to create that profile at the site level. Otherwise, it'll just be inherited for each site in your account from the account level here. So hopefully that makes sense, and just let me know if I can clarify that. So these cards at the top of the page, these are just showing how many total services that we have. Now, how many are missing? So this will require a configuration, and I can show you how to do that. Unapproved and banned services. These three are going to require configuration. Up here in the top right, this is how many services you have without profiles. Now, this should typically be 0, but if we haven't detected this one of your domains before, this number may be a little above 0. What you can do if that's the case is you can click on that and just go ahead and bulk create your profiles. Now, the unassigned domains, likewise, if we haven't detected a domain from our global library, this number is going to show up as greater than 0, and you can actually go in and categorize or add these domains to a service. Now, this is something we actually are always doing. We manually curate all of these domains, so this number should be 0 for you, and if it's not, feel free to reach out to us and let us know, and we can get them assigned. Otherwise, you can go in and assign these domains to services yourself. All right, and up at the top here, there's a few links to, for example, our global service library. You can also link over to the SLA thresholds page, the CSP manager. There's bulk actions that you can do on this table. You can also review all of your domains. Like I mentioned, as far as the domain whitelist and the process of creating a content security policy, you can click here to review all of your domains that are showing up on your site. So out of the 108 services, we have 134 domains on our Blue Triangle website. Now, we've already been through the process in this site of approving each of these domains. If you're new to Blue Triangle, you're going to need to run through this process. And just to sort of clarify, there's a security admin approval and a tag management admin approval column for a check and an X, approve or reject. The idea here is there should be multiple people on your team running through these just to validate what domains should be approved and which ones should be rejected, right? So now, if you don't have multiple folks on your team for this, that's okay. As long as there's at least one tag management admin and one security admin, then you'll be fine. So over to the left, as we look at each of these domains, before I continue on and walk through this table, you're actually able to see this information at the service profile level. So if I were to click on the Neustar Ad Advisor profile, we can actually just review the domains for that particular service. Okay. Now, over to the left, we have a column that the percent of BTT index. So this is basically saying out of all of there's 5,000 or 6,000 websites that we're measuring in our index. And this gives you an idea of the percentage of those sites that are loading this content or these domains. So this gives you a good idea of, how prevalent is it among the internet, and, if this number is too low, maybe we should consider the possibility that this isn't a legitimate domain. But certainly if it's 0, then you should definitely raise some questions about this, but this just gives you some context for, how prevalent is this domain. Now, this column here shows us whether it was observed in real user data or synthetic data. As I mentioned, the security admin and tag management admin approval columns are here. You're able to see what was approved, what was rejected. Now, real quick, there's also a log of that activity, and that is if you go into the settings and go to the log section, there's a domain violation and audit log, and that's where you can see who has been approving and rejecting domains. All right, now over to the right we have our source types, and this is really for the content security policy. However, it does operate the same for the domain whitelist. So basically what we're saying here is what types of files should we allow to load on our page? Otherwise, what types of files do we know that we want to be loading on our site? As far as a whitelist goes, we can get notified if, for example, we know that there's only a JavaScript file loading for adadvisor.net, for example. So we can say only JS. Now, if it loads a CSS file, that's going to raise a flag and send out a notification saying this is not part of the approved domain whitelist, so we're going to send you a notification. And the way to get notifications is if I close that down, you want to go over to your profile and make sure that you have, I'm going to edit my profile. You want to make sure that you have your approved domain whitelist violations, your email notifications enabled. So I'm going to go ahead and enable that for myself here. Hit save. And we're going to go back over to the service profiles. You're also able to export this list as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open up one of these services and kind of walk through what information is there. So as I showed in the slides, up in the top left here, we can fill in the business owner, technical contact, their email addresses for this service, as well as the department or even sub-department to which this service belongs. Is it a marketing tag or a, just an analytics tag for the dev team or what? As I mentioned, you can also upload attachments here as well. Now, moving down to the page, this is where much of the information is going to fill in from one of our service security applications. This is all information that you can fill in yourself, but you can also have it loaded in. If you send this out to your vendor and make them fill it out when it's submitted, you can go ahead and fill it into the page here. Now, I mentioned before the So I mentioned before the missing services, the unapproved services, and the banned services. These are all a result of this service status field here. So there's a variety of statuses you can set here: new, required, banned, or allowed. And for some of those, you're able to define, between what dates will this service be active on the site. Is it indefinite, or is it only going to be for a specified period of time? Now, if you specify the period of time and it's not showing up on the site, then that's going to be a missing service. Otherwise, if you have that defined, but you haven't approved it, it's going to show up here in this number for the unapproved services. And finally, if it's expired or otherwise rejected, the domains are rejected, it'll show up here in the banned services. So that's what the service status is. Now again, here's more fields related to information about the data collection and the details of the actual service as it relates to what they're doing on the site at the code level and what kind of data they collect. Over here, you can specify what kind of personally identifiable information they're tracking. And moving down the page here, you can specify any JavaScript files that this service loads, as well as their expected file range. Another really useful thing you can do here is enable tracking and notifications for this service. So if you're familiar with the missing services page, this is essentially what came before the missing services. And that is, you go into a service and you enable the tracking and notifications. And what you can do is define the percentage of time this service should be on the site. And if it falls below that threshold, you can define how often or how frequently we should send you notifications about this. Here you're able to see the current percentage with real user and synthetic data to give you an idea of how you should tune these thresholds. So that's a really nice feature there. Here you can define your notification groups or recipients here with emails as well. So another great part of the service security application is it makes the vendor define if there are any subservices. Now you can fill this information in yourself, but this is another helpful tool to understand, is this just a standalone service or does it also load other services as well? You can click here to add this manually if you'd like. And finally, toward the bottom of the page, we can see the domain approval. I'm actually not a tag management admin or security admin, so I can't check these boxes right now. But this is the same detail that you'll see in the domain approval window. All right, so I think that is the majority of what I wanted to cover. The last thing I'll point out here is you can actually customize the service profile table here. If you click this button, you're able to add different columns to the table as you like. So if you always want to see the business owner, you can add that over here, and you can order it in the table here. You can also get rid of any of these columns. Maybe you don't use the SSAs, abbreviated service security applications. You can just put it over in the excluded side, and you can just save and close, or you can just revert to the default that we set up for you out of the box. All right, so I think that's all I had. I really hope everyone has learned a lot more about these service profiles and what they can do, and really why it's a really useful tool for any tag governance process to be able to understand what information these services collect, who owns these tags and services, what kind of what are the files and domains that the service loads, and especially to build your whitelist or a CSP as well. All right, so for more information about, for example, SLAs or anything else related to tag governance, certainly check out some of our past training sessions. There's some really good ones. There's one dedicated to the SLAs. There's one all about the missing services. The one last week, I kind of touched on each area of tag governance, including all of these different pages. There's a training about the hierarchy, as I mentioned, the missing services, and today we walked through the service profiles. So thanks everyone for your time. I'm going to pause now and check the chat and the questions and see if there's anything I can help answer for you guys. All right, it looks like we have a couple of questions here, and I'm just going to go ahead and get started with them. So the first one is, can you clarify the purpose of the service security application and also how to use it? Sure. So let me jump back over to the portal, and I'm going to actually add it back in that service security application column in the table here, just because it has a pretty cool feature I want to show you. But so basically, at a high level, the service security applications were really designed for the implementation process of a content security policy. One of the key reasons for this is obviously a content security policy is going to block any content loading from domains or files that you haven't specified. So sometimes when vendors and services are under high capacity, heavy load of traffic, they're going to disperse the traffic load onto additional domains that they have. And these may be domains that you haven't specified in your content security policy already, or you weren't aware because they're not common domains. So the reason for this, and this is just one of the good examples, is to be able to ask your vendor straight up front about what are all your domains, so I can be sure to include them in my my content security policy, so that I don't out of nowhere start seeing these CSP violations for content that should be valid. So, and then to talk about quickly how it kind of works is basically when you're fresh on the page here, you're going to have all these green buttons for generate new application. And if you click that, what you're going to do is get a pre-written email about what it's basically saying, hey, representative from service, we're going to be implementing a CSP in the next few days. We need some more information to make sure the service is going to function on our site. And they're going to get this form to fill out. I can just open it up in another tab here. And it's basically going to look like a big chunk of the service profile that we've already gone over. So they'll be able to find, the high-level information about their service, including a GDPR statement, and as well as information at the code level, any PII they collect, and then of course all of the associated files and domains, subservices. So, and when someone submits the application, it'll show up in the table here. It'll show up in the table here as a service pending import. And you'll be able to go into this little drop down and click a button that says import to my profile. So that's kind of how it works. Hopefully that answers your question. So it looks like we have another question on the service security applications. And yeah, this is a good one. So He says, it seems tedious to send out and collect all of the required service security applications. Is this a required step in the process? So the answer to that is no, it is not a required step. So certainly don't think this is a barrier to implementing a CSP or even implementing a domain whitelist. Another function of the service security application is the ability to build and define a really crystal clear domain whitelist for your site. So we definitely recommend it if you can make it happen. It's gonna help. It's gonna make your life a lot easier, but certainly they're not necessary. I think that is all the questions I see so far. With that, guys, it looks like that's all we have for you. Thank you so much for your time. And if you do have any more questions, we're happy to speak with you offline. So feel free to reach out to us anytime. You can reach us at any of the emails listed here, support@bluetriangle.com, of course. And you can also submit a request or a question in our help center at help.bluetriangle.com. So for more information about our product trainings, like how to watch past sessions, be sure to check out our help center. Again, that's help.bluetriangle.com. And there's a section, a big button for product training. All right, guys, thanks again for your time, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.